How's it going? Thad Brown here with you on the Endgame. It is Monday, June the 1st. Monster news in the NFL. Myles Garrett heading to the Rams. We will talk all about that and why this wasn't another move the Rams made and the Bills avoided. It's not because the Bills don't care. I'll explain why in a minute. I also want to talk about reading between the lines with Jim Leonard. When we think about Max Harrison versus Davison Igbinosun, I thought we got a pretty strong clue last week about why the Bills might favor the guy they just drafted. Plus, we'll talk about Game 7, Thunder Spurs, look ahead to the finals in both the NBA and the NHL. And, of course, we will have You See This going over the weird things from the weekend. Caleb Carr will be in-house. I'm going to talk about an ejection that had everybody up in arms from the College Baseball World Series. That and a whole lot more today on the Endgame. Thanks very much for checking us out today. Again, the huge news, if you didn't hear, this broke in the last 2 hours or so. Myles Garrett going to the Rams in exchange for Jared Verse, a first-round pick next year, so 2027, a second-round pick in 2028, and a third-round pick in 2029 as well. So the Browns, I thought, made out pretty well with this deal. But let's start with the Rams side of this, because this is going to be the biggest, most important thing, and that is the Rams, who clearly have been all in this entire offseason, adding Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs earlier and now adding Myles Garrett to that defense. This makes a ton of sense for them. Not just because they're the Rams and they're the F them picks this team. They're the team that always takes the big swing. This is a team with a quarterback in Matt Stafford who clearly is near the end of his career, right? He's got to be. He's got enough of an injury history that he could turn into a pumpkin at any time. Obviously, it's not because there's some magic why he's good. He's a legit good player, but the injuries may catch up with him a lot sooner than anyone wants to admit. So they're a team that 100% wants to chase the right now. And I don't mean like the next 2-3 years. It's really a year-by-year thing with the Rams. They're trying to win a Super Bowl right this second. And separate of the whole, they're ready to win a Super Bowl and this is about trying to win right now, the Super Bowl is in LA this year. So they want to try and win one at home. There's even a financial incentive to have the Rams in the Super Bowl. Not that it's going to not be a big game if some other team from the NFC goes, but they want to be able to be the team that wins a championship in their home arena. So there's all the motivation in the world for the Rams to want to try and get this done. And even though they traded away a pretty good player in Jared Verse, you're bringing in the reigning defensive player of the year, the guy who just broke the sack record last year. There are very few players in the NFL, I think, that would be a clear upgrade over Jared Verse, and Myles Garrett is obviously that and then some. So from the Rams' point of view, this is, I don't want to say a no-brainer, but it's an easy decision for where you are as a franchise, the spot that you're going to upgrade. I mean, it's not like they're bringing in the best linebacker in the NFL or the best guard. They're bringing in the best edge rusher in the league. So for the Rams, it makes all the sense in the world. The first round pick in 2027, and we're going to talk about why that's important. You don't need that. Second rounder, third rounder. Now look, even the Rams, as the team that constantly will seem to tell you that we don't care about draft picks, they traded a first, a second, and a third to Cleveland, but they were all in different years. They didn't want to totally drain themselves of draft capital in any one particular year to make this trade work. They said, we're going to give you a 1, a 2, and a 3, but we're going to do it in 3 different seasons. So the Browns won't even see the third of these draft picks until 3 years down the road. There's going to be a player in this trade playing their rookie season, we believe, for the Browns 3 years from now. I mean, Matt Stafford, Myles Garrett, there might be coaches, GMs who are a part of this trade who will never be around to see the other end of it, the full finished product of the trade. And again, the Rams might be the picks are stupid team, but even they wouldn't put two of these picks in 1 year. Regardless of all that, the Rams take a pretty good player in Jared Verse and upgrade him into a generational player in Myles Garrett. In a season this year where they desperately want to win a Super Bowl, not just because, like I said, because their quarterback, Matt Stafford, who knows how many games he has left, but because the Super Bowl is also in their house. So easy, yes, we'll do it from the Rams' point of view. Now, the reporting is that the Rams have been hounding the Browns to make this trade for weeks, months, whatever. The Browns wouldn't do it until the Rams agreed to include Jared Verse, which I think tells you how good a player Jared Verse is, and I agree. If I'm the Browns, I feel pretty good about this trade. If you're going to make a Myles Garrett trade, short of getting 3 first-rounders, and there's an argument for that to happen, if you're going to make a trade as the Browns, this is the type of deal that I would feel okay about, because you're not throwing away your ability to get after the quarterback. Jared Verse is not Myles Garrett, probably never will be. Frankly, there might be 3 or 4 people in the history of the NFL who could say that they are in the same category as Myles Garrett. That's fine. You're not going to get that guy. But from what else is available, or for what you would accept to replace Myles Garrett, I think Jared Verse is very much in the category of a guy you'd feel okay about if you're the Browns being your replacement for Myles Garrett. Again, he's not going to be as good as Garrett, but he's a pretty good player. And he's still, one would think, ascending. He's only been in the league 2 years. This will be year 3 this season. He had 7.5 sacks last year. You go through the history of the elite pass rushers, even a guy like Myles Garrett, they don't generally dominate what Garrett does. But other guys, most normal human beings, they don't dominate year 1. They're not rolling up as a rookie and getting 15 sacks. It does take a little bit of time to develop. So there's every reason to believe that Jared Verse going from 4.5 sacks as a rookie to 7.5 sacks year 2 could push that up to 10 or 11 year 3. Now there's going to be some situational loss here because you're going from the Rams, who with their offense and their general team success are up a lot late and rushing the passer a lot late, to the Browns, a team that's never rushing the passer. So frankly, if Jared Verse goes from 7.5 sacks to 7.5 sacks, that's a heck of an improvement, going from the Rams to the Browns, assuming both teams are what we think they are this year. But I am okay as the Browns saying, yes, we're losing the best pass rusher in football right now, the best defensive player in football right now. But the guy we're getting back, he can be a number 1. He can be a lead edge rusher. He can be a guy that will say, all right, this is where our edge rush starts. This is where our pass rush starts. And then we build off of that. And you're doing it on a guy who's only halfway through a rookie contract. So you got him totally cost controlled for 2 years. He was a first round pick. So you can definitely employ the 5th round option if you want to and still keep him undervalued for a guy who could be a number 1 edge rusher. And that's only one part of the trade if you're the Browns. You also get a first-round pick next year. Now, sure, it's going to be like pick 28 at best, but that 2027 draft is so stacked and so valued that there are a lot of teams that don't want to trade any picks out of that draft. For example, the rumored A.J. Brown to the Patriots trade, with the Patriots trade not too far off from where the Rams are in terms of being willing to throw away draft picks in exchange for a better look at the present. The Patriots don't want to trade a 2027 first-round pick. That's the rumor. Their trade is going to be a 2028 first-rounder. And remember, the Patriots have every reason to believe they're going to draft as low in round 1 as the Rams will. So for the Browns to get a first-rounder in 2027, that is a nice little notch in the belt on this trade. So you've already got a young edge guy who, again, will not ever be at the level of Myles Garrett, but who you can keep at a high level and who probably has a ceiling that is unrealized, and you can expect that guy to play at that level for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, as good as Myles Garrett is, he's not going to be that 5 years down the road. He's close enough to the end of his career that you can make the argument that there will come a point in the relative near future that Jared Verse could be a better player than Myles Garrett. It won't be again 2026, 2027, 2028. But down the road, it's very possible the Browns might have the better edge rusher out of this deal, deep down the road. and a first round pick in our stack draft and a second round pick and a third round pick. And again, with the state of Matt Stafford's injury situation, by the time we get to the 2029 draft, that third rounder could be near the top. Who knows what the Rams are going to be like? We know how the Rams roll, right? They're good for a while, and then they hard reset. That seems to be the Les Snead plan. So it's arguable that even the 2028 pick could be a heck of a lot higher up in the round than we think. So all in all, I think the Rams did pretty well when you think about having to trade away Myles Garrett and what you're getting back for that. Because the Rams got an edge rusher who they should be able to count on to be a lead level edge rusher for half a decade, if not longer. Cost controlled for 2 to 3 years. And they got a first round pick and a stacked draft plus 2 picks in day 2. That's a pretty good haul. I saw it on ESPN. Someone described it as a stand-up double. I agree. It's not a home run. Home run would have been Verse and like 2 first rounders, or maybe Verse and a first and a second from the 2027 draft. Maybe that's you're talking about a home run. But the Browns in a spot where they are moving on from far and away the best player in the trade, I thought they made out okay. So to me, this is a solid win-win. This isn't just, I think it's a win-win. This is a resounding win-win for both sides. I think both teams walk away from this trade fairly happy. The one team who does not walk away from this trade happy is the Seahawks, who are certainly very much a contender to be a back-to-back Super Bowl champion, but that job just got a whole lot harder. Yeah, losers in this trade are easy. The Seahawks, Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, and whatever sacrificial lamb the Cardinals roll out. Those are the losers in this trade. The winners, the Browns and the Rams, and of course Myles Garrett now, who we will finally, hopefully, assuming Stafford stays together, we will finally be able to see Myles Garrett play for a contender. I mean, Myles Garrett, 3rd and 7 in the fourth quarter of a game where his team's up by 4, sign me up for that. I'd like to see a few of those opportunities this year. And we will finally get an opportunity to see him play big games. But I thought this was a really, really good trade for both sides. And I think both teams will probably feel pretty good about where they're going. I mean, the other thing for the Browns too, by the time they're any good, Myles Garrett, again, might not still be in his prime. Jared Verse will be. And even if Jared Verse's prime is not as prime as Myles Garrett's prime, I think the Browns still ended up with a very reasonable package in exchange for trading away Myles Garrett. Now, inevitably, the talk about this trade here in Western New York turns again to, why can't Brandon Beane do this? Why do the Bills never go all in? Why can't we do things that the Rams do? Look, we talked about this a few weeks ago. This is not just about like a willingness. This is not just the Rams care more, or the Rams are more aggressive, or the Rams are willing to take risks more. This is about the Rams earning the ability to do this. You know, we've been hearing this a lot with the coaching change. Joe Brady's going to come in, he's going to be stronger, tougher, more aggressive. He's just going to attack. There was a story recently, Nick Sabato from Niagara Post-Gazette. I didn't read the story, but I saw the headline. Nick does good work, by the way. Talking about the Bills wanting to get guys that are just going to blow stuff up. And look, that's, if you want to go about it that way as a team, that's fine. It's not like just grabbing all those blow stuff up guys is the solution. If it was, every team would do it. Now, maybe do the Bills need more of that? Sure. You want to argue they need to be more physical? Sure. But it fits in the whole discussion like the one Bills fans are having today about, why can't the Bills just want it more? Why can't the Bills just take the risk? Why can't the Bills just throw those picks out there and you would have Myles Garrett too? It's not that simple. This is not just about the Rams wanting it more, the Rams being more able to handle the risk, or the Rams not being as willing, or the Bills being too interested in playing it safe, too interested in long-term success. It is not that simple. The Rams, like I said, have earned the ability. I know that I just made the point about how they're not desperate, but certainly highly motivated to go all in this year, but they earned the ability to do that. This isn't just a decision. This isn't just a moment where where Les Snead wakes up in the morning and says, the heck with it, I'm going to trade everything. And Brandon Beane wakes up in the morning, and some fans seem to think that he looks at his own shadow and gets scared because he's not willing to make a trade like this. The reason the Rams, a big part of the reason the Rams can make this move and the Trent McDuffie move is because of how well they've drafted the last few years. The Rams have still, even after trading away Jared Verse, they have 5 starters on their defense, if you include the nickel, who are recent draft picks in the last 4 years, not including 2026 because those guys haven't played yet. If you take the 22, 23, 24, 25 draft, that is half of the Rams starters in defense. 5 guys who were drafted plus an undrafted free agent. Half their starters on defense are recent drafted players. How many drafted players do the Bills have on their defense who are going to start? Cole Bishop, 1 corner, Terrell Bernard, Deion Walker, recent draft picks. That's it. Greg Rousseau is on a second contract. Dorian Williams, I guess, could be a starter. He's in line maybe, so maybe they might have 5 of their own. But the other safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, free agent. I guess Christian Benford. I forgot about Benford. So the Bills have a number of guys. But the Rams, we start with the defensive players, and you go on offense. You got Puka, and you got 2 offensive linemen too. So when the Rams have that base of drafted talent, and again, the Rams players are mostly pretty good players. The Bills players we're talking about as starters on defense, we like Cole Bishop a lot. We like Christian Benford a lot. Check. Terrell Bernard has moments. Injury's been an issue. We'll see. Deion Walker's in year 2. All the promise in the world. We like that. And who the heck knows what the Bills have at corner too. They got 2 options that are recent draft picks. We don't know if either one of them can play. And then on offense, the Bills have Khalil Shakir, but he's not Puka. And yeah, the offensive line has been good, but it's just Osiris Torrance. I guess, no, Spencer Brown's on contract too. So in terms of recently drafted players, the Rams have done just a better job of filling that out. And the main part of this trade, the main reason why the Rams were able to make this happen is because they have Jared Verse. We just talked about him, how much of a reasonable replacement he is for Myles Garrett. The Bills don't have that guy. Greg Rousseau's on his second contract. He's probably maybe a tick worse than Jared Verse in terms of how people see him around the league. They're pretty close right now. But Greg Rousseau, I think, has reached his prime. He is who he is. Jared Verse could still be better. More importantly, Jared Verse is not on the giant contract that Greg Rousseau is on now. So this is not about the Bills not being willing to do it. The Bills don't have the flexibility to make it happen because of their draft success has not been as good as what the Rams have done. The Rams had Jared Verse. They have 3 other guys on their defensive line who are recent draft picks, who are all on rookie contracts. The Bills are signing Bradley Chubb, to fill out their defensive line, to make it functional. And they're going to try and count on a bunch of young guys this year. We'll see who works. So the Rams built up a team, built up a draft base that allows them to make a trade like this, that allows them to go out and get Trent McDuffie, that allows them to essentially flush draft picks because they were more successful than Buffalo was in the draft. They got an all-everything receiver in the draft. And while, the Bills got most of their offensive line in the draft, Deion Dawkins is on contract 3. Spencer Brown's on contract 2. Osiris Torrance might be on contract 2 any day now. The Rams have 2 guys still on rookie contracts on offense. The Rams still have multiple really good starters on defense on rookie contracts. This is why they earn the ability to do this, to be able to take a big swing on a Myles Garrett, to take a big swing on a Trent McDuffie, to move away from first-round draft picks because you've already built your draft base. Forget about this season. Even if the Rams, if you take McDuffie and Garrett off the team, and obviously it makes the defense a heck of a lot worse, they still have a pretty solid base. Guys like Braden Fisk and Kitchens. They have a long-term future, a long-term core on defense that you feel pretty good about. The Bills are getting there with Benford and Bishop and maybe Deion Walker and in theory, one of the guys who they drafted to be one of their corners, and maybe Terrell Bernard if he turns things around, and maybe one of the linebackers, whether it's Dorian Williams or even Caleb Alarms, or who I think has got a pretty good shot to start this year. There's possibilities there. We might, if the young guys in Buffalo on defense, let's say that either Max or IGB hits, and either Dorian or Alarms or hits. Well, now we go into next year looking at the Bills defense like we look at the Rams, because you'd have close to a superstar corner, a really good safety in Cole Bishop. You've got close to a superstar corner in Christian Benford. You've got the respectable, at maybe base level, decent corner we're talking about at number 2 with Max and IGB. Deion Walker takes a step. You got a nice piece in your defensive line, who's a recent draft pick. And you've got at least one linebacker who's still on a rookie contract. Remember, Terrell Bernard, he might be a draft pick, but he's on a second contract also. So the Rams have cost-controlled, recent draft picks who are all over their defense. In terms of guys on rookie contracts, the Bills have that are drafted, it's Cole Bishop, it's whoever wins the second corner job, and it's Deion Walker. And that's it. Everybody else is either a free agent signing or on a second contract on the Bills defense. This is why the Rams have the benefit of being able to take the big swings. It's not about the Bills not being willing to do it. It's about the Bills not drafting well enough to have the flexibility to do it. Brandon Beane's got to be better. Les Snead has been better. Now Les Snead gets to take advantage of being better by improving that already good defense with the good quality pieces he's drafted. I always get frustrated with the argument that the Bills just aren't willing to do what the Rams do. Brandon Beane went out and signed Von Miller a couple years ago. That was an all-in move. At that point, he had Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Trey White. You had a base on defense. Stephon Diggs, a base on that team. Guys that they weren't all cheap, cost-controlled talent, but you were in a better position to take that big swing than where the Bills are now. The other part about the Bills not wanting to take a big swing is that this is year 1 of Joe Brady. More likely than not, your head coach is going to take some time to figure out how to be a head coach. Even your defensive coordinator is going to need some time to figure out how to be a coordinator. So this is not a year for the Bills to be going all in. Now, look, anybody would want to have Myles Garrett, and he's not a one-year solution, same for Trent McDuffie. But in terms of 2026, we talked about how the Rams are almost desperate to win this year. Not only because of the health situation of their quarterback, but because the Super Bowl is in their home building this year. The Bills are not in that spot. Sure, they want to win this year. They think they have a roster who can win. But the likely scenario is that Joe Brady takes more than 12 months to figure out how to be a head coach. Jim Leonard takes more than 12 months, not only to figure out how to be a defensive coordinator, but to get the personnel in Buffalo that would make his defense work. This is not the year for the Bills to go all in. Again, next year's a better year. Leonard comes in, defense looks like it's going in the right direction. Alarms or perhaps hits. You maybe get IGB, who's the guy who wins at second corner. He looks like a guy who can be depended on to be your other corner opposite Christian Benford a long time. Then you go out and you make the all-in move. And there'll be all-in moves again next year. I mean, even Trey Hendrickson going to Baltimore is an argument for an all-in move. And yeah, they're doing it with a new coach too. I'm not a fan of what the Ravens have done this offseason. I like Jesse Minter. I like Trey Hendrickson. But putting Trey Hendrickson, a 31-year-old with his own injury history, the same year as you're bringing in a head coach who's never done it before, that doesn't seem to make sense to me. I think that's a poor team build. And if the Bills had done the same thing, I would have said the same thing. If the Bills had gone that direction. So this is not a year for the Bills to go all in. Not only because of who their head coach is, but because of the fact that they haven't earned it yet by not drafting well enough. Speaking of the Max IGB discussion, I wanted to point one leftover thought I had from the weekend after Jim Leonard talked to the media last week. So when the Bills drafted Davis and Igbinosun, there was much consternation in Western New York. What are the Bills doing? They just spent a first-round pick on Max Hairston. This seat and this microphone offer the same kind of criticism. And the Bills kept telling you, it's about depth. We got to build depth. We got to build depth. Well, so Jim Leonard talks to the media last week and got a question about what Max Hairston can bring to the defense. How his skill set could fit in to what Jim Leonhard did. And I want to kind of play the answer that Jim Leonhard gave, but pointing out a little bit along the way the interesting parts of this soundbite. So this is what Jim Leonhard said.
I was a huge fan of Max coming out of college as well. And
so a question about Max,
we needed,
and he's already moved off of talking about Max.
I firmly believe like you have to be able to rush the passer, you have to be able to cover, and we needed more depth in the room in order to do that. And again, IGB is a guy that we saw as a
question about Max. Now he's talking about IGB,
right? The size, the length that he has is a little bit different than what we had in the room, and we just felt like that was the right person to get in the room with that pick. And
still talking about
excited
IGB.
That it went that way. You know, obviously was huge going through the draft process with being the first time. And
now, question about Max. He's moved on to his own experience in the draft.
Really, really exciting for me. And now we got to go make it right. So, but that was the biggest thing. It had nothing to do with Max or CB or bringing D in. Like, we need more depth. Like, you
talked about a random nickel corner. Question about Max.
You can never have enough guys who can cover.
So, if you're wondering there, that's Jim Leonhard answering a question about Max Hairston. I did the research. Jim Leonhard talked about Max Hairston for 4 seconds. He talked about IGB for 16 seconds. The question was about Max Hairston's skill set, and Jim Leonhard talked about Igbinosun for 4 times as long. Now, look, is this absolutely spending too much time, perhaps, on one soundbite for one press conference? Absolutely. This is 1,000% trying to dig through all the kernels of a press conference to figure out something that very well may not even be there. And the other 2 big caveats to this IGB Max tinfoil hat stuff, which I know I'm bordering on with this. Number one, we don't even know if Igbinosun can play. He's a late second-round pick. And we've seen with Cole Bishop could play. We didn't even know it his entire rookie year. So even if Igbinosun hits, it might not be for a season or 2. And we don't even know if Igbinosun really is a long-term answer as a corner. That's caveat number 1. Number 2, Max Hairston still runs a 4.2 40. That's the trump card in the NFL. I don't care what position you play, what job you're asked to do, what role you have. If you're faster than everybody else, most teams are going to find a way to use you. And there's nothing that says the Bills can't use both guys, maybe rotate them a little bit. I know some fans have thrown out the idea of Hairston will be the corner against the small, quick guys, and Igbinosun will play the taller, stronger guys. Maybe. I think that's harder to make happen on a play-to-play basis than most people would imagine. But could they share time? Absolutely. But when the defensive coordinator gets a question about player A and talks about player B 4 times as much and talks about player A hardly at all, especially when that coordinator was not around when player A was drafted and certainly had his fingers all over the drafting of player B, you can bet that's something that stands out to me. Somebody who spent 30 years almost listening to Bills coaches offer press conference niceties about everybody on their team. When all you hear are the cliches and the same generic supporting statements of everybody who's on your team, you learn to read between your lines. You learn to read between the lines. And when a guy gets a question about player A, talks about player A for 4 seconds, and then talks about player B for 16 seconds, that speaks volumes. Now, I don't think, again, this is going to be a straight up competition in camp. But we talked after the draft happened that Davis and Igbinosun is going to have his opportunities to win the job at corner 2. And that press conference, even though it's one answer in one press conference, that certainly, to me, increases the likelihood that IGB has a real chance to get significant playing time, to at the very least cut into the snaps that you think would be reserved for a former first-round pick. Again, it's me reading between the lines, 1,000%. But that answer stuck out to me like a sore thumb after Jim Leonhard gave it. All right, let's take a break here. When we come back, we will have Caleb Carr, and we'll do You See This. Also want to talk about NHL versus NBA finals. One is going to be the varsity, one is going to be the JV. We will talk about which is which after a break. My name is Thad Brown. This is the Endgame. You're watching Rochester First, but the cool kids, they all call it Rock One. We're back right. Thad Brown back here with you on the Endgame here on a Monday. There we go. Get the right graphics up there. Thanks for being with us today. As always, want to remind you, once again, right here on Rochester First tonight, 8:30 p.m., BKL. BKL Nightly will be back on. It'll be me and Caleb Carr. We're going to do the over-under show. You know, a lot of numbers are out. You can get some bets on whether the Josh Allen will have over under a certain number of yards, touchdowns, DJ Moore, James Cook, wins, obviously. So Caleb Carr and I are going to break down our thoughts on whether you should bet over or under on some of the key numbers that are on the sports books when it comes to the Bills for the 2026 season. And I'm sure we will have more thoughts on the Myles Garrett trade from the Browns to the Rams. Outside of that, over the weekend, really, really huge Game 7 when it came to Spurs and Thunder. Had a good time watching that. Excellent series. I'll be happy to see 7 more of those in the West if that's where it goes. Wemby versus SGA is great. I think people got a little over their skis with the hate on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and taking the fouls. I get it. It wasn't the prettiest of basketball, but I do think that he is still an elite player who puts out an elite product. And I know there are a number of people who didn't like it. I was not quite there, even if I get that anyone who is a foul merchant, as they call them these days, I understand the distaste for that. I've always been a little bit of a Thunder fan, so I'm got a little bias there. I did think that the pendulum had swung too far the other way in terms of the hate on SGA. But Game 7 was not about that. There were, I think, very few issues with the referees. There certainly weren't a ton of foul calls. There wasn't a lot of players hitting the deck to earn foul calls. That game was played straight up, hard, good basketball, and the Spurs were just better. I thought the Thunder would win. The Spurs were the better team. And I think what happens almost all the time when you talk about big-time NBA games, whether it's the finals, Eastern or Conference final, whatever, you get the Game 6, Game 7 of a great series between elite teams. It's not about the stars because the stars are going to play. Wemby's going to get his. SGA is going to get his. It's about everybody else. It's about the role players. And in this game, the Spurs role players were far better. I mean, you had in the fourth quarter, Julian Champagnie, Keldon Johnson, the rookie Dylan Harper, all making threes. I mean, the first half of the fourth quarter, when it looked like Oklahoma City might have a little window to run something down, every time there was even a sniff of making that game close, somebody not named Wemby canned a three for the Spurs. And Wemby hit one too. But the role players were so good for San Antonio, especially in the first half of that fourth quarter, to keep that game an 8-10 point lead. Because if the Thunder got it down to 5 or 4, and you saw they darn near pulled it off in stupid fashion in the last minute and a half of the game. But I think if they had gotten it to one possession, I think SGA and the home crowd would have been enough, and maybe some playoff experience would have been enough to get the Thunder over the hump. But the Spurs kept Oklahoma City at arm's length in the first half of that fourth quarter, never let the crowd get into it, in large part because of the role player three-point shooting. And one really, really good Luke Cornett block on an Isaiah Hartenstein fast break dunk / layup. Another spot where if he hits that bucket, you're down to a 6-point lead. So now you're a stop or two away from making that a 1-point game or a 1-possession game. That was going to be, actually, I think it was going to be, come to think of it, a 4-point game if Hartenstein makes that bucket. And instead, Cornette gets the block, Spurs hit a jumper, you're back to 8 again. So I think it's always, almost always, the role players who decide games like this. And on the flip side, while the Spurs role players are hitting big shots, Chet Holmgren, nowhere to be found. He pulled a Ben Simmons. No shots after the first couple minutes of the game, scored 4 points, and was invisible. Now, the Ben Simmons comparison is not fair because Ben Simmons has had years of not having the mental capacity to be able, years of proving, I should say, not of proving that he doesn't have the mental capacity to play big in those big spots. Chet Holmgren's done it for one game, and a guy who's already won a championship. So we're a long ways from Chet Holmgren really being Ben Simmons 2.0, but that was a Ben Simmons-like game. And I know he's going against Wemby, and I know Wemby's 7'3", and he's an alien and erases a lot of guys' offensive games. Holmgren's got to be more involved. That, taking Holmgren out of the game made it more of an SGA by himself kind of situation, and the Spurs were going to win that. And you saw it in the fourth quarter. The Spurs were too good for SGA to win that game by himself, especially when they're making threes. So now we go to the NBA Finals, and the NHL Stanley Cup Finals all set to go to Carolina and Vegas. And the NHL Championship Series is going to be the JV series for the next 2 weeks. Spurs, Knicks is the varsity. Carolina, Vegas is the JV. And it's not about how good the teams are. Carolina and Vegas are wildly deserving of being in the final. Vegas, after everybody thought the Colorado Avalanche were the unstoppable machine, Vegas mowed them down in 4 games, made it look easy. So they were clearly the best team in the West. And Carolina, and I know fans will complain about the playoff format and Carolina playing in an easy division and only having to play Ottawa and Philly in the first rounds, blah, 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 blah. Carolina was the best team in the East. And they pretty much have been just about all season. So the NHL got a really good final in terms of the talent and caliber of the teams. Maybe not elite stars both ways, but really, really good squads. I mean, this is going to be a competitive, I think, and certainly interesting Stanley Cup final. But in terms of the general interest, no one's watching this hockey playoff except for the diehard fans. The people who are going to choose, do I want to watch the NBA? Do I want to commit my time to the NBA or the NHL? Who are just casual fans, they are watching this NBA final all day long. In the NBA, they had to be popping champagne. I mean, it really didn't probably matter whether San Antonio or Oklahoma City won, but the Spurs were easily the better of the two matchups. It was going to be good if it's Thunder Knicks. Getting the Knicks in was the big win. But to get Wemby on top of that, to get this player who might be the next generational, elite, top 2-3 player in the league, to get him in a final in his 4th year in the league, or 2nd or 3rd year in the league, whatever it is, his first season in the postseason, for him to go all the way to a championship round to potentially winning a title against the Knicks team, who just being from New York is huge. But then on top of that, the almost 30 years it's been since the Knicks were in a championship round. Knicks fans who have long been waiting to see a championship for this team. And the other thing that I think most people understand this, but it bears repeating. When it comes to New York sports, they have 2 football teams, Jets and the Giants. They have 2 baseball teams, Mets and the Yankees. They have 2 hockey teams, Islanders and the Rangers. And even really, a 3rd team in the Devils. I know the Nets play in Brooklyn, and that's technically a 2nd team. This is really the NBA in New York, it's a 1-team city. It's about the Knicks. So the interest and the avarice for anything Knicks related for New Yorkers is off the charts, because this is the only team in that city where everybody roots for the same team. Everybody's a Knicks fan. Or at least it's like 95-5 with the Nets. I mean, Mets-Yankees is like 60-40. Jets-Giants is 60-40. Rangers-Islanders is probably 60-40 in favor of the older teams in all 3 cases. Maybe closer than that, I'm not really sure. But those sports, New York fandom is split. With the Knicks, it's everybody. I know it was 30 years ago, but I went to college on Long Island. This was during the Jordan heyday. And every year, all the Knicks fans would tell me how this was going to be the year. This was going to be the year they finally figured out Jordan. This was going to be the year that Starks and Ewing and all those guys were going to get over the top. And it wasn't as it would be with the Mets and Yankees, with the Jets and Giants, half of the people I knew. It was everybody I knew. So to take that entire populace and make it not only somewhat interested or casually interested, this is the only thing New York's going to talk about sports-wise for the next 2 weeks. So to put that into a championship series is a ridiculous get for the Knicks or for the NBA by itself. That by itself, the Knicks versus anybody would be more interesting to the general public, I think, than Carolina Vegas, which isn't a sexy matchup on its own, even if those are two very good teams. But again, to throw Wemby on top of that, one of the new, fun, interesting, unique stars. I mean, this isn't just a 6'7" athlete who looks like so many of the other. This isn't Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, who are great, great players, but they look the same as a lot of the other NBA stars we've seen. Wemby's a brand new species. That's why they call him the alien. So you have that on one side, with a brand, by the way, that's pretty decently known with all the success the Spurs have had over the last 25 years or so, up against everything a New York fan could ever want. You don't get much better when it comes to a championship series. So for the next 2 weeks, no matter how much NHL fans want to protest, no matter how good Carolina and Vegas will be, and they are, and that series might be excellent, the NHL is the JV series, and the NBA is the varsity series. And that's how it's going to get treated. And I don't think it's unfair. It may be a little bit just because of the general NBA lean this country has. But Knicks Spurs is something I can't wait to watch. Knicks Spurs is going to be super fun. Let's be fair. Most people who are watching Carolina Vegas, who aren't Carolina or who aren't fans of Carolina or Vegas specifically, are probably hate watching that series. That's not something that they're going to watch because they want to watch it. They're going to watch it because they're hoping a meteor hits the game and destroys everything, especially Sabres fans. I know Sabres fans are trying to figure out which team they want to lose most. That's pretty much how they're going to decide it right now. Okay, time to bring in Caleb Carr. It's time for You See This, our weekly segment where we go back at the past weekend in sports and point out something that might be a little bit off the beaten path, but something that very much got our attention from this weekend. And although I like mine better than your story is more interesting to the fan base, the clientele that listens to this show. So you can go first, Caleb.
I mean, you were just talking about Sabres fans, how they got to decide who they want to lose more in this series. And while that's not very exciting, this was pretty exciting for Sabres fan. Consta Helenius, a big Rochester Amherst guy. He played like 66 total games, I believe it was, for them this season. But he stepped up to the Sabres a few times, and he was a big part for their playoff run. He was just playing for Finland in the Ice Hockey World Championship gold medal game against Switzerland. 0-0 goes to overtime, 10 minutes, 42 seconds in. He rips the golden goal and is the hero, 20-year-old hero for Finland, helps them win their first gold medal since 2022, I believe. Yeah, 2022, and their third in the last 7 years. So, I mean, this is just, Sabres fans already saw it in the playoffs that he's a young guy who can become a star in the next few years, but this just kind of caps it off. What an incredible season he had.
First of all, I always think these world championships are weirdly placed. I mean, obviously you got to put it here.
It is.
But it's like the NHL is kind of done. A lot of guys who are playing in this event, you haven't even seen them for a month and a half or whatever. And then all of a sudden, world championship.
Yep.
Big deal.
He joined the team late. I think maybe it was group stage that they had already begun or something. They had already begun something leading up to the tournament, and he had to join them. He missed a few of the games because obviously he was with Buffalo. So
the other thing for me too was, so in overtime of a gold medal game, they're playing 3-on-3.
Yes.
Which I thought was weird. Look,
it's a little strange. It's a little out there, but I mean, doesn't matter too much. It's still hockey.
Well, especially it leads me to my final point of this, though, which is, of course, Helenius did this. Oh, yeah. Of course, this guy, you give him a big spot, he's going to step up.
He has multiple times already.
Right. And all this season, this is the perfect cap to his season. Short of maybe scoring like a goal in Game 7 or something like that.
Yeah. Short of like winning the series with Buffalo.
Right. But even that might be a bridge too far for him just in terms of where he's at in his development. But Amherst trade away Isak Roseanne. Someone else has to step up to be the elite guy. Hellenius steps in. Right.
He was huge. So many big games.
Sabres struggling a little bit. Need to find some juice against Montreal. Hellenius goes in. He didn't score any hero goals, but he absolutely brought the juice.
I think he played 4 playoff games for them and had 2 goals in the playoffs.
Right.
I believe it was.
I think they're in the same period almost, maybe. The same game. I don't know.
I can't remember if they were the same game or back-to-back
Maybe
games.
it might have
I think they were
games.
back-to-back games.
Regardless.
But still, like he had 2 big goals. And it wasn't like, I don't think they were like, it was 6-1 and he makes a 7-1. Like they were like important goals that helped the team win.
So at least they weren't 61 empty net goals, for sure.
They were garbage
legit
time.
goals, right?
Yep.
And then he finishes it off by scoring this goal for Finland. And look, I can kind of quibble a little bit with how important it was. It was still a national championship and a gold medal game. So it was a big deal.
Yes, this isn't, don't compare this to the Olympics.
Right.
Because this isn't what the Olympics was this past year. Like we said, there were a lot of guys that probably would have played in this, but they couldn't or didn't because their NHL team, which is arguably more important at this point, was still in the playoffs. So they couldn't be there. But there still was some NHL level guys and some really good competition on the ice. Like this isn't just some amateur thing that he went and did. This is still a world championship level game.
The other reaction that I saw some fans have, and maybe they felt this already, was that after Hellenius scores, Sabres fans have been talking about, should they go out and trade for a goalie, maybe go out and, take some of this excess of young talent and build it all into one giant superstar. Would Hellenius be involved in the trade? Most Sabres fans are like, no way. No,
I hope not.
He's out now.
I've also seen a lot of people be like, he's never putting on an Amherst jersey again.
No, he's probably not. Yeah, I think that's
or whatever it is in hockey. But no, he's definitely. I think that one was already pretty clear as well. But after this, there's no way.
I will say that when Devin Levi played in the NHL for like a handful of games, the reaction wasn't too dissimilar to what we've seen from Hellenius. Now, to be fair, Devin Levi's playing end of season games in a lost season to where any sort of success is measured highly. And Hellenius is stepping into second round game 7s and International Hockey Federation Championship gold medal overtimes.
Yeah.
So the situation is much bigger.
His are a little bit, I would say that the level of like what they actually did on the ice is similar, but like the stage that Hellenius did it is much higher than what Levi did.
The only reason I bring that up is that it's not unfair that Hellenius might be, like, it could happen that this might be the best month of his career. He's played at such a high level.
But he's also only 20 years old.
Sure.
That it's so hard to it's so hard to imagine that is the possibility. It is a possibility, but I think it's one of the smaller ones.
Right. So I get not wanting to put him in. And they have enough other young talent to where they could make a deal. And make it work. Like so I'm a Winnipeg fan, and I know Connor Hellebuck, Winnipeg's goalie, is one of the targets.
Yep.
And as a Winnipeg fan, look, I don't know if they're in a position to they should be keeping or holding on to a 33, 34-year-old goalie. So I'm okay with a trade. And as a Winnipeg fan, I want Hellenius. For sure.
I mean, I would say any fan of any team other than like ones that are constantly competing for for a championship.
Vegas and Carolina.
Yeah. Like you should probably want he's just so young, he's so talented. The sky's the limit for a guy like him. Why wouldn't you want him on your team?
I don't want to get sidetracked too much, but just to finish it up. So I've been trying to like come up with ideas for a trade that as a Jets fan I'd be okay with outside of Hellenius. And I mean, Owen Power I think would have to be involved. And then I don't know, Jack Quinn. Maybe. Maybe. I mean, I don't, and now look, it's that and a first rounder. Like the first rounder is a staple. So it becomes a lot harder for me as a Winnipeg fan to feel good about the trade. And the point I'm making is that their GM's been pretty good. I don't think you're going to get a guy like Hellebuck without having a trade that me as a Winnipeg fan feels good about.
Yeah, and I think Sabres fans would be okay with like a Power, or I think they'd be okay
with Quinn in a first rounder?
Yeah.
That's why I'm not okay with it.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I think Sabres fans would be fine, and I think that's why it wouldn't happen.
I have to think about it more. I don't know if they have another forward that I think would be available that I would like.
Sabres?
Yeah.
I can't think of one off the top.
They have guys who you'd like, but I'd want a
not
younger
enough
guy.
For
like
a prime goalie, or like a top goalie.
Right. All right. Like I said, I don't want to get too sidetracked on that. That could be a different show.
What do you got?
Okay. So mine was from the Georgia Liberty baseball game, College World Series. I assume you've seen this? Yeah. So for those who want to see it, we can't post any video of it here, but it is on my X feed, Thad Brown 7. I quote tweeted it last night. You can check it out. So it is Georgia Liberty I don't know what round they're in. They're not in the final round. They're in the sub-regionals.
Yeah, they're still in the sub-regionals.
Yeah.
I think this game was maybe like a sub-regional final, but
Or
maybe it was the semifinal for the
I think
sub-regional.
that Georgia now has to play Mississippi State in the championship round of the sub-regional in a best of 3.
Possibly.
This is why college baseball gets confusing.
College baseball is so confusing.
Oh, man.
If you understand it, it's so much fun.
Right.
But it's hard to understand.
Just tell me when the championship game is on and the best of 3 series at the end, and then I'll watch. But anyway, so Georgia Liberty, at some point, we're still pretty deep into the series, but we're into the playoff. It's 1-0. Liberty's up. Trey Phelps is hitting. Trey Phelps hits a 2-run homer. That's just about a no doubt about it bomb. And then after swinging, he watches it. And then he dances down the first baseline, facing the Liberty dugout, seems to gesture towards the dugout, rounds first base, then waves at the first baseman on the way by, then seemed to say something to the second baseman who was talking to him too on the way by. His whole trot was slow. Like I quote tweeted it with last night, this was an instructional video for how to get ejected from a game after you've hit a home run. Now, I've heard from a few Georgia fans that are totally on Trey Phelps' side. Obviously, his manager was livid, got ejected also. The other side of this
I think
he
should be upset.
The manager getting tossed was almost a fait accompli once the player gets tossed.
That's what happens.
The argument against this ejection is that as he was running down the first base line facing the Liberty dugout, Georgia fans were seated right above the dugout. I don't know what stadium they're in, but like the roof of the dugout is 3 rows of fans. Like it was weird. It was almost like a wall where you saw players and then fans. So, and someone sent me a picture of Trey Phelps' family who was on that side. Now the family's sitting down by home plate. So I'm a little suspicious of people were like, oh, he's waving to his family.
Maybe if he was doing something coming into home plate, that would make more sense.
Right.
But not going to first base.
Going down the first base line, it doesn't look like he's talking to his family. It looks like he's talking to the Liberty dugout. Mm-hmm. I could buy that, though. I could buy the idea that, oh, it's all Georgia fans and you're talking to your family, the fans. I could buy that. The moment he waved to the first baseman, you're gone.
And then continued as he's going to second base, looking into the outfield and doing more stuff. As soon as you continue to do what you were, immediately it's just out. Yeah.
If you would take away some of that. Don't gesture down the first baseline, or don't wave at the first baseman, or be respectful the rest of the trip, then maybe I'd get on your side.
Yeah.
But the whole thing.
He did way too much.
Was over the line.
Too much.
Exactly. And I'm go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, to your point, I think you can make the gestures going down first baseline because you're excited. Obviously, and then don't wave at the hitter. Don't do anything to second base or third base, but coming into home plate, maybe a few more gestures to the crowd. All that's okay. But I think the big bad one is gesturing to the first baseman.
Yeah.
I think that's the worst one.
So there was actually a report on the umpires actually laid out in fairly decent detail what they thought of it. Uh-huh. Essentially, he was ejected for unsportsmanlike conduct or language directed toward an umpire or opponent. I'm assuming it's an opponent.
The opponent. Yeah, right. I would assume the opponent.
And they in the report mentioned the wave towards the first baseman. Mm-hmm. As for the first thing, it was a weird setup in that. Now maybe Georgia was home. They were the home team, and I'm assuming they were home.
They hosted the regional.
So it was in their building.
It was at their stadium. Yeah.
So, but the proximity from the fans and the dugout, it is impossible to know who a player would be talking to.
Yeah.
I mean, just the way that's set up, it looks. You could easily make an argument that he's talking to either side. Now I don't know if he reserve that row for Liberty fans or whatever. I don't know how you fix that.
Maybe, yeah.
But it's just the fans are literally right on top of the dugout to where you can't tell who the guy's talking to.
I think I know how you fix it. The players just don't talk to anybody.
That's an idea. Just run to first. Yeah, right.
I think you just take the home run and you round your bases.
And
I think that's what you do.
I am absolutely totally fine. Like bat flipping. As long as you're not hurting somebody, you flip that thing wherever you want to.
I think there's a level where don't throw it at anybody. Don't try to reach and don't try to break a world record or something that. Yeah, but a little bat flip or throwing it on the ground, I'm all for that.
All the violent ones. I mean, as long as you're being somewhat responsible, I'm totally fine with that. And look, in general, my thought is if you don't want a guy celebrating a home run, then don't let him hit a home run. But this was over the line.
Yeah, it was
in
a little
every
much.
Way, shape, and form.
It was a little much.
To be able to get behind it.
And just to make sure that we have our facts straight, this was Georgia Liberty in the Athens regional final. Georgia won.
Oh, so they're going to play the Super Regional next.
So now they move on to play Mississippi State in a best-of-3 series.
Okay.
In the Super Regional.
Okay.
Yep.
So there we go. I appreciate you that.
Yep.
Because it is excessive the amount of rounds they play in college baseball.
They play so many. Yeah.
But the thing I was thinking is that back in the day, Tom Amansky used to do like the instructional baseball videos with Fred McGriff. You ever see these commercials? This is back in my time.
So. I'm not sure.
So we'll have to go and I'll have you look them up on YouTube in a minute here. They are the dumbest, dorkiest 80s, 90s commercials you'll ever watch. But they were so bad, they were hilarious. Everybody my age, the moment you bring up Tom Amansky, Fred McGriff at the end of these commercials would always say, "This is the instructional video for you." And we all have that ingrained in our brains. This to me was like the Tom Amansky video for getting ejected from a baseball
there
game.
you go.
It was everything you don't want to do.
There you go.
All right. Give me 10 seconds on the Myles Garrett trade. You'll have more time to do this on BK Nightly, but go ahead.
Rams to the Super Bowl. That's all I got. Rams to the Super Bowl, in Browns, some hope in a few years, maybe.
I thought it was a decent trade for the Browns.
I would have liked another first-round pick as a Browns. If I was a Browns fan, I would have liked another first-round pick thrown in there, but it's still not bad. It's not bad.
So you're a Steelers guy, though, right?
Steelers.
No, that's right. You're a Bills guy.
I'm a Bills guy. You just call me a Steelers fan?
You know why that is? Because the previous person who had your job, AJ, on that desk was a Steelers guy.
Wow, I cannot believe you just did that.
I know. That was an old man.
insane.
That was an old man pull by me. Wow. Time to get off the TV, everybody. Thanks for Caleb Carr for being in. My apologies for forgetting his fandom. That's my fault. Look, dude, I'm old, all right?
It's like the worst thing you can do to somebody.
Forget their fandom?
Yes.
That's a good one. We'll save that for the next show. For Caleb Carr, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks very much for watching. The news is next right here on Rochester First. We'll see you again on Thursday.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.